Welcome to the Business Information Buffet Podcast, also known as the BIB Podcast, where everybody eats, brought to you by the College of Southern Nevada Small Business Entrepreneurship Development, powered by MV Grow. Are you ready to eat? Because this is where everybody eats. Welcome to the Business Information Buffet Podcast, also known as the BIB Podcast, where everybody eats. Powered by MV Grow, housed at the College of Southern Nevada. We are your hosts, Sean Torrey and Core Don Allen, the Don himself. What's up, sir?
How's it going?
Hey, man, I'm good. How you feeling today?
Feeling pretty good.
Man,
yeah.
it's a chill day.
Yeah, it is a chill day. For now.
For now. Why for now?
It's a football game later.
Oh, this guy. Oh, yeah, that's right. This guy is about to go have a good time.
UNLV, baby.
I'm about to, Wolfpack.
Come on now. See, I ain't even mention your school. Like, we ain't even.
What you mean?
Anyway, what you got on your feet today? We're not even going to go there.
So I actually went back to the closet for these. I got my Reflector 13s, you know what I'm saying?
Got them out the vault.
I brought these out the vault. Yeah, these. Actually, it's crazy. They're 14 years old, 10 years old today.
Really?
They're not today exactly, but they're 14 years old.
Wow.
That's not 14, 10.
10 years.
They're 10 years old.
Came out in 14.
They came out in 2014. Yeah. These came out in 2014.
Crazy.
So I went to the closet for these. Nice. This is where I can actually make a defense. Jordans were actually comfortable because Jordans I got now, I don't know what happened.
They've gotten lazy with the production.
They
honestly.
definitely have. These are comfortable. I can have these on my feet all day long. Yeah. Crazy.
Definitely not the same Jordans from 10 years ago.
Not at all. And then I put so people think this is an ascot. It's not an ascot, it's a neckerchief.
Yeah, do your homework, people.
Do your homework, it's a neckerchief. I got the neckerchief on. This is just slight work for me. What's good with you, sir?
Nothing crazy, just a little cardigan work, slacks, black in year 5s. These are, I wouldn't say collectors, but it's a collab with Jordan.
That's right.
Nothing crazy.
And then you see our lovely guest for today. She got the black Air Force Ones.
Yeah, she's scaring me. I'm not gonna lie.
Why'd she scare you?
She got on them forces.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Come on, there now.
Is
you
a
know about them black forces.
The white and the black forces.
You know about them black forces.
I mean, pun intended.
Pun intended.
She knew it.
So she bought it.
Yeah,
okay.
It was on purpose. She had to set the tone.
Not because I'm a thief. I've seen a lot of
viral
videos and like thieving stuff going on. But this is more about just, black people came up with that kind of
that is factual
narrative.
That's facts.
Sure.
I'm for us. I'm for lifting up how we describe things and the jokes that we make about ourselves.
Of
Definitely.
course. Man, come on now. See, as y'all can already you heard our lovely guests, but we're going to talk about what's today's episode called. Today's episode is called News from the Margin, with a special guest who's excited to discuss the importance of journalism for communities of color. You know what I'm saying? So our guest, her name is Naoka Foreman. She was a general assistant reporter at the Indy after freelancing as a journalist since 2017 when she launched her pop culture newsletter series, The Majority. The official newsletter from The Margin. In 2016, she decided to pursue journalism after producing 2 short documentaries while attending Nevada State University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in visual media with concentration in digital cinema.
Yes.
Okay, listen, that's the first snap. That's the first snap. First snap. In 2019, Miss Naoka launched News from the Margin, which I love, by the way. That's where I get all my news. On Instagram, a community-focused newsroom that seeks to inform ethnic groups, mainly Black and Latino Americans, about politics, history, and culture on the local, national, and global level. By establishing a newsroom, Naoka was able to develop a secure reputation as a trusted journalist before being hired by a traditional news organization. Naoka graduated from UNLV's.
Hey.
Listen, rebels make it happen.
Sorry. My bad.
I can't wait till somebody from UNR come on and I can just.
I'm sorry. It's the UNLV part. The journalism part is great. It's the UNLV. No, I'm just playing.
You're a UNLV student, right?
Yeah. Now listen. We have an understanding. Me and UNLV have an understanding. Yes, I'm a doctorate student at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas CB program. Shout out to y'all. But UNLV, no, okay. Actually, let me do better. That my doctorate program is actually dope. So UNLV, you gave me a complete 180 experience. All right, we cool. All right, anyway, but our lovely guest, she graduated from the UNLV's Journalism and Media Studies program with a master's degree in 2022 after publishing a thesis about how Black female agency on social media. In 2024, Naoka was awarded a proclamation from the Board of Clark County Commissioners for her contributions to local journalism. Wow. You hear me?
The work is crazy.
The proclamation, a proclamation, that's official. I don't got one of those. Salute. For real. Now, ladies, gentlemen, everyone in the place to be. Our community journalists, our writing activists with a sharp pen, Miss Naoka Foreman. Woo. Come on.
Welcome,
Queen. What's up?
Thanks for having me.
No,
and
thank you.
I do want to do a little bit more of my fit check.
Yeah, do more. Some more.
What you got on today?
That's what I'm talking about. Do some more of your fit check.
So of course I got on the Black on Black forces.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
attended. These are Good American.
Okay.
And Emma Greedy is the CEO. She's a Black female.
Oh, come on.
And this shirt was made by a guy named Ishmael out of New York.
Yeah.
And he has a brand called For Thinkers Only.
For thinkers
And
only.
it pretty much promotes like being intellectual, being a thinker, not being consumed by mass culture. So
Right.
Okay.
shout out to him.
Yes.
This is one of my favorite brands, and I hope that, his brand continues to grow. And
No, thinkers, right? I'm going to look into him. I like that.
Yeah.
I was seeing that. I was wondering who got that from. So I like that. That's fire. And then you got the pearls on.
the pearls, we do that. We do that. The pearls, they had a huge comeback, and I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm all for the men wearing it. I'm all for the women wearing it. I'm all for the pearls making a comeback like they did. So.
For sure. How man, I've been waiting to get you on this show for a while. So I'm thankful that you're able to be here today. Someone I definitely respect highly. You do a lot. Every time, like News from the Margin is like one of my top 5 notified, because I always look for the news from you purposefully, because you do a great job and for pointing out local news and national news, what's going on. So but we're gonna go to the blueprint. So please, Naoka, please, so the blueprint of like how all this came about. I know I hinted at it in your bio, but I want you to tell how the blueprint for News on the Margin for Naoka Foreman, how did that come about? Please tell our audience.
Okay, yeah. So I don't want to make this too long.
Don't do your thing. We good. We got time.
Okay. Okay. So just growing up in Vegas, I grew up in Northtown. Went to school on the West Side.
Yeah.
My family is from the West Side. So we went to schools on the West Side because I think that's where my mom was more familiar, trusted that area. She always worked on the West Side in childcare. And just growing up in Vegas and then moving to cities like Detroit. I moved to Detroit when I was 19. And just seeing that our communities, when I say our, I'm talking about, Black, Latino, mainly Black, and who I've grown up around, it seemed like we weren't as informed or aware of, I don't want to say the world, but just how things work. Like, it just seemed like we weren't really understanding the world in ways that, like, when I go to Detroit and, there's a lot of Black pride there. Yes. There's a lot of different types of Black people.
I was there in April. Loved it.
Right.
What up, though?
Right. Period. Right. And that's something that they've been saying for generations.
Yes.
For generations. So just meeting so many different types of Black people with their own identities. I met a 5%er. I had never met a 5%er.
Yeah, that's
ever.
dope.
Not to label him as that, but that's how he labeled himself. And I got to know him and just meeting so many different types of Black folks and being from a place like Vegas where I feel like the identity is very narrow. It's not a lot of different types of folks. And I think that it's growing. So that made me interested in how we're informed. What's informing us? What is what's preventing us from being informed and things like that. So I had a passion for information, politics, so all of that passion has always brought me to a space of writing and reading, really, mainly reading. So just reading so much and staying informed, trying to inform others. I launched a newsletter series called The Majority.
I remember that.
The official newsletter from The Margin. And writing that, I was focused on talking about things in the media, but bringing it to a place where we could understand it in our everyday lives. How these big stories like Meek Mill going back to prison. That was a huge
I remember that piece.
thing in culture. Like, what? He went back to prison for popping a willie in Philly? Like, that was something that a lot of people questioned that. So that was something that I wanted to dive into, look at it and see how is this coming up in our communities? You know, probation. What is this? What is probation? And what is its function? And why is it so harmful? What makes it harmful? And what makes it harmful particularly to someone like Meek Mill, a celebrity, someone who's so wealthy, rich, and with crazy connections, yet he is someone who ends up back in prison for popping a willie.
Right.
So
violating probation or whatever.
Violating probation.
I remember I when you broke that story, I read it from you first. And at first, I personally was like, "What? He really popped a willie? He went to jail for that, or violated probation because of that?" And then I think you were saying in that article how that's when I found out he was on probation for 10 years. So even after being free, he was on probation for 10 years. I was like, he was on probation. I was like, hold up,
10 years.
10 years of being on probation.
It's a long time, right? So, and a lot of people had an attitude like, "Well, don't break the law. Don't break the law. You know you're on probation." And it was a point of a lot of like contention in that conversation. So I wanted to write something about it.
Right.
So that's what led me to launch The Majority. That was the first issue of that. And then after writing that, I went to grad school. I went to UNLV.
Yep.
Started studying journalism and media, and media from a space of emerging media like social media. How those two spaces are different and how social media might use the same formulas that mainstream media uses to control the images that we see.
Right.
All of that made me say, okay, well, I really want to be in the space of bringing information to our communities and bringing a perspective through journalism from a Black perspective. So I launched News from the Margin because I wanted to start reporting, really. I wanted to start reporting. And I wasn't really aware because I wasn't a reporter, technically. I was just a grad student wanting to share information, had already been doing some journalistic work. So that was how I kind of kept going with The Majority.
Gotcha.
Launched News from the Margin in 2019, right before the pandemic.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was crazy.
So it was actually good timing for me.
That was good timing.
And I launched it on Instagram after doing a case study on the Shade Room. And seeing how they take up that space, how they use it as a place to share news and what makes them come off how they come off, and how I can come off differently and more like a place where, it's not entertainment. It's actually for, if you want to know about the world, you want to know about your community.
Yeah. So. Okay. And you're born and raised here too.
I'm born and raised right here in Las Vegas, second generation Nevadan.
Second generation? Yeah. You went to the Dub too, right?
Yes, I did. I graduated from Western High School.
She went to the Dub
unit.
So you don't know about that young fella?
The Dub unit, that part.
He went to the Dub.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No, that's cool. Okay, so then started that from News on the Margin. How has News on the Margin been for you? And for one, just huge shout out to you. I remember you shouted us out, my nonprofit King of Jewels, like while I was in Jamaica. I remember I didn't even know you was going to do it that way. I remember we talked about it, but I was like, that was love. I appreciated you for doing that. Like I think we just need a love just for our young men's conference. That's what it was.
Absolutely.
I remember you did that. So I appreciate that.
Of course. And you were saying News on the Margin. I don't know why you started.
Why'd I say that? News from the Margin. Oh, my bad. News from the Margin. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know why you said that, but some people say that. But
I think it just rolled off the tongue. But no, News from the Margin. Yes, News from the Margin.
Yeah, it's a place where I also like to give people their flowers who are, doing something for our community. If we're not doing it, then nobody is. So, and we don't get flowers for that a lot of times.
That's
so
true.
I definitely want to be a space for that too.
And since then, it's just been going great for you. Like, I mean, I stay reading this stuff all the time. So every time you drop something, I thought the last piece you did with Leslie for Math Liberation, that was a good piece too.
Thank you.
So
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
And I want to
I read your stuff.
You do. You read my stuff. You listen. You watch the Instagram stories because that's where the daily news updates are. And that is literally the point. Like you said, you get your news from there. You probably feel connected. How do you feel when you
When I because I go to your stories and then I'm like, oh, let me read this. So then I literally, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be seeing it. Because to be honest with you, I don't want to follow all those news stations. Like, no disrespect to them, but I go straight to yours if I want to know what's going on. I don't even watch the news on TV, even though I have access to it because I got YouTube TV. But I go to yours first.
And that's literally the point. Is to be a space where you can get connected to news, and I'm the one that's deciding. Like, I think they would be interested in this, and that what you see has been cultivated over time. Just seeing how y'all interact with different news and seeing what you're interested in. So,
For sure.
Glad that that is something that you can use in your day to day.
It's not just me. I think a lot of folks I know do the news on the margin. I love when you do your other events too, because I came out to it when you did it at 33G, where I got to be you really got to know Sean Torrey if you didn't know me. And like, there's certain things I just don't put out there that I like to keep private. I keep my private life very private. So, but I respect you because reason why I respect you and I appreciate you is because you do create a safe space for people here in Las Vegas. And especially coming from a journalist, traditionally journalists don't do that. They're not discreet with your information. But I know there's conversations, not just me, but other people have with you that you keep discreet. And I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, man, do you have any questions for her?
No,
Before we move on to the
right
next
now.
one?
I'm going to save them for later.
Are you going to save it for the next one?
But I want
Yes,
to
ma'am.
touch on what you said. You said you came to Chase's Art Gallery for, that was my 4-year anniversary
It was.
party.
I remember.
4-year anniversary smoke out,
Yep.
as we like to be someone who is interested in cannabis and cannabis culture and explaining what's happening in the cannabis industry right now and how, it's an industry that has taken on a new form and just wanting to still be included and use cannabis in a way that we have used it traditionally, which is having those intellectual conversations, talking, chatting, really building and having a cipher about real issues that are impacting us. So that's the point of the smoke out, is to have a space like that. So I just want to touch on it. I'm glad that you appreciated it and you felt safe, because it is a safe space, and that's the point of it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one. I'm just waiting for you to drop it. I was going to ask that. When's the next one?
Is good. The
When-
next
when-
one is cooking for sure.
It's cooking? Okay. I was waiting for it. So listen, I'm prepared.
And one thing about News from the Margin is, I'm not someone who is going to, and this is just me. So it's me. My cousin helps out with engagement and commenting back to people every now and again. But it's not formulaic. It's not like this happens. It's like, oh, this news came out. Let's marinate on this news.
Yeah.
Things like that.
So, and I want you to highlight the other stuff you do. So you did mention the smoke out, but you also have the podcast. And you hosted at Mariposa, right? Like, tell us about, I don't want to tell it forward. Tell the people all about it.
For sure. Okay, so the live podcast, it's a dinner and a podcast. So we go to Mariposa. Shout out to Mariposa. Shout out to Devin Moore, who has been such a great supporter of me and my journey, and especially News from the Margin, providing that as a space for me to do this dinner and a podcast concept around news, around information, around community. So dinner and a podcast, we have chicken, catfish, fried shrimp, fries, salads.
I will be going next
Wow.
time.
That part, right. Because the food is good. So I always get the catfish. If I'm burnt out on the catfish, because I eat it all the time, every time I go to Mariposa, I get that. I might get the fried shrimp. The fried chicken is good too. But so the food is a good component of it, because we're eating and we're listening to a live show. Really, it's basically a live show.
Yeah.
But it's It's rooted in information. It's rooted in Blackness, a Black perspective, and community, politics, these things, spirituality, wellness, media trends, and it's $20. It's usually $20. I mean, it hasn't really swayed. It might be like 22 with a little extra taxes and stuff like that. You come in, you get a plate, and you listen to a live interview. At the end, if there's enough time, there's a question and answer moment there. Usually lasts about 2 hours, and that is something that actually brings money into Dues from the Margin. It brings money into the equation, and that's something that I'm focusing on building out after going to the Urban Chambers, Nevada. What was it called? Nevada Capital Readiness. I think it was called that. I went through that program, and I didn't make all the days. Sorry, y'all. Sorry to be you. But I was super busy at that time, and that was something that they pointed out. Like, well, you're already making money doing the live interviews, so keep focusing on that, keep building that out, and maybe do more of them to start really bringing in some revenue.
I think because I remember we talked, and I physically went. I was finally able to go. I went with Leslie. You did an interview with Leslie.
Oh.
And I loved my experience. I pop into Mariposa once in a blue moon. I don't be outside too much, but I'll come out to stuff like that, community events. So I remember it was a great time when you had Leslie up there. Well, one of his biggest things, I was like, man, you got to record this bad boy, put it out there. So I could just watch it again, because I listen to it, but I will let to watch it again. I like watching stuff too. So, but no, man, thank you so much for that first part of just giving us the blueprint of News from the Margin and how have you been able to grow as a journalist. This next segment of the show is called Business on the Fly, and I'm going to let my man Cordon do that.
So Business on the Fly, we ask you like some either or questions, and you can pick one or the other, or you can pick both, but just explain why you chose what you chose.
Okay.
So the first question is underground or mainstream journalism?
That's good. I'm going to say underground. I'm not sure what you mean by underground, but I'm going to take it as non-traditional media.
Yeah, I mean more like on not like a smaller scale, not like Wall Street Journal, New York Times, like something more local, something more personable to the people who are in the community, like what you do. Right.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to say underground. And really that's more like podcasts. I like to listen to political podcasts. Yeah. And, that's what I've been listening to lately. But even just, mainstream news, it serves a purpose.
Definitely.
But I'm always so captivated and fascinated by the non-traditional spaces of media.
Gotcha.
Especially when it comes to how people are approaching news, like Slauson Girl. I don't know if y'all are familiar with her community newsroom. Things like that. Also, the Kansas City Defender.
Yeah.
And I actually met him. His name is Ryan Sorrell. I met him at a journalism conference. Super cool, humble guy, doing great work in journalism. And I'm always inspired by what people do when they're, really just doing them.
Right. Gotcha. So,
yeah.
You got the next two questions?
Yes. So the next two I have for you, for the first one for me, academic or professional writing? And you know the difference in those.
No, I want to know, what do you mean by professional?
I would say, which is not academic. So like the professional writing, which you do at the Independent. You still write for Nevada Independent or no?
No,
okay,
I'm not at the.
But you were there. So
that kind of writing or academic?
Or academic, yeah.
I'm going to say academic.
Okay.
My favorite writers have been Black female researchers.
Yeah.
So like a Bell Hooks, of course.
Crenshaw.
Kimberly Crenshaw. Yep. But also these women who work in the media landscape. So like a Beretta Smith-Shomay.
Yeah.
Who
she's dope.
Is a researcher of television and how Black folks are, and particularly Black women are, how they take up space in TV and, or how they don't take up that much space in some of their roles. So definitely academic Black female researchers are astonishing.
Especially, like, I think that it's made me look differently at data because of Black women who are in research, especially intersectionality. So Kimberly Crenshaw, Gloria Glanson, all those folks. Oh man, I used them in my research. So trust me, I feel you.
Listen, Kimberly is going to come up and
every time. She's a beast.
Coming up.
She's a beast.
Definitely, she came up in my research as well, and yeah, like she has that. She put it all together to provide that founding knowledge about intersectionality.
She did, and she helped me understand the importance of how to really look at quantitative and qualitative from a critical lens, because there's that black quark grid, all that. Like, I was like, man, okay, I don't have to just subject myself to this type of research. We can use our own black folks to do it. So yeah, trust me, I feel you.
Absolutely.
Local or national stories?
I'm gonna have to say nationally, national, unfortunately, and that is more of a reflection of our news landscape. Local news is, I'll say this, national news, they have a wider audience.
Yeah.
So it's probably, their stories might dive a little bit deeper because they don't have a direct audience, I guess I would say. And maybe that's based off of an assumption. But local media tends to, at least in Nevada, in my opinion, is very conservative.
Yes, it is.
And there's a lot of gaps in it.
Yes.
Lots of gaps in our news. So I'm going to say national because at least with national, I can get someone who is like a bell hooks who's talking about something, or national news, I might get just access to different types of voices, whereas local news is, it's a little bit more narrow for whatever reasons.
Yeah. Which is why, again, I say, especially when you do your actual individual pieces, I always read them. And I'm not, by any means, not disrespecting or shade to anybody else, but I say the same stories all the time, cycled, and I'm just like, okay, nothing innovative, nothing to where I'm like, okay, this is the actual issue going on, or hey, this is what's informative to what's going on. Like right now, CCSD they're doing different meetings on focus groups for everyone's. They want to get people's opinion on what they want from a superintendent, but that's not been pushed out from local news. You see, like that should be like
that's definitely should be. Yeah,
that's part of the problem I have.
And the thing is, it's like there's a formula for television news. I'm not sure if you're referring to television news or if you're referring to printed journalism.
Both, actually, both.
Right.
I'd say both.
Absolutely, I definitely agree that the way education is covered in Nevada is very interesting.
Yes,
very interesting.
That's part of why I feel that way. Yeah,
seems like it's a lot of stuff missing, but I will also say that there's not a lot of. I mean, we have really mainly two main printed political news organizations out here, and only one of them. And I don't know if Review Journal has a dedicated education reporter, but I know the Nevada Independent has a dedicated education reporter.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
I didn't know that until you started writing for them. When you did write for them, I was like, oh, they actually have an education system. I actually read it.
Right.
So I was like, oh. Yeah.
Right. And then there's other like outlets. There's also Vegas PBS with their weekly news program. And I mean, there could be a lot more coverage of education. A lot more coverage of education, a lot more voices in that space. So I'm with you on that.
For sure.
Last question for this segment is New York Times or Wall Street Journal?
I saw that question and I was like, why not? Or the Washington Post? But the New York Times, definitely. And but really, the Washington Post for me.
Yeah, why the Washington Post then? Since you said that.
Why?
The Washington Post, from what I've seen, and you know what, I'll say this so I collect news, right? So I'm also the Instagram story for News from the Margin is basically a collection of news. The Wall Street, no, not the Wall Street Journal. The Washington Post their stories for me have been a lot more community focused, a lot deeper into the community, the voices that they share, or the perspectives that they're showcasing. It's a lot more, to me, on the community level. But the New York Times, I mean, it's the New York Times.
Right. So. Yeah. For sure.
Got it.
Well, thank you so much for that segment, Business on the Fly. Cordon, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
This next segment, let's get deeper, right? This is where we look at the legend. So the legend...
My forte. No.
Yeah, that part. The legend is, remember those on a map, when we read an actual physical map to like travel before GPS?
No, I don't.
Oh, you didn't do that?
Never did it.
Okay, well, on a map.
Won't try it. No, I'm just joking.
There was this box, and even if you look at a geography map, remember that little box? That's actually called the legend. It tells you the details of what the icons mean.
Yeah. I'm familiar with that in school.
Yeah.
I think we did it one day, and then that was it.
So, what are those intricate details, right? That these are we're going to look for you as far as journalism. So, my question for you is, what do you feel like? You mentioned earlier that there's gaps in local journalism. What are those gaps, and how do you think we can fill those gaps?
What are those gaps in local journalism? So first of all, I want to say Nevada is a news desert.
Yeah.
So it's a known news desert. So there are probably way more gaps than I can even describe because, someone who's been reporting for 40 years will have a better idea of what the gaps are if they care.
Yeah.
Right? But I would say for me, when it comes to reporting, there's a lot of things that aren't covered, like different policies and different events, spaces that aren't covered. Yeah. So I would say mainly, like, I don't think that Black people, the Black community is represented in news as much as it could be.
Yeah.
And so often we're in news from tragedy. It's this teenager was killed. This person killed this person.
Yeah.
This person was killed. And we're not in news when we're accomplishing something.
Yeah.
We're not in news when we're a victim but still alive sometimes. And for me, it's the humanizing of Black people is missing to me in the news landscape here in Nevada.
Yeah.
And that's a really big problem for me, actually. That's a huge problem. I have an issue with that.
Do you feel like I think that's a national problem too.
Yeah.
And that's what and nationally, there are those stories that we get to see, of Black people being successful, accomplishing something, or the victim of something and humanized in a sense.
Right.
But in local news, more often than not, we're killed, going to prison, did some kind of heinous crime, or is fighting to be seen as a victim. Mm-hmm. And so for me, what I've come to understand and trying to understand further is how our communities, Black folks, are not humanized in the news.
Right.
So for me, that's a really big gap that I can point to.
Okay. So do you think you heard of the program, the documentary called Program of the Nation, right? Or no?
I don't think so.
Check it out. It's something I learned years ago when I was like in high school. It's a documentary called Program of the Nation where they break down how news, writing journalism, and media have programmed the nation on what to like. For example, one of the things they point out is who told you when you go to the movie theaters to get popcorn and Coke?
Who told you to do that?
Yeah.
Media. Is this what you see in media?
Exactly.
Commercials,
So
billboards.
stuff like that is like, that's how they program the nation of like,
Absolutely.
when you go get food, advertisement, this thing, they pump. Like, do you feel things like, and this is kind of where I was getting to my question, and I know you ain't seen it, so check it out if you can, Program the Nation. But do you feel with the local news and national news now, this is still painting the narrative for people of color, Black people, Indigenous people, Brown, Asian, Pacific Islander? Do you feel like it's still painting the narrative on the negative side, to where our students who face racial microaggressions, systematical barriers, when they go into these institutions, because the higher they go, the less they see of them, right? Mm-hmm. This is something I've been studying for my doctorate program, but also who I still work here at CSN doing this role. I find, and I'm sorry, this is a long question, but reason being I bring it up is because I know a lot of Black students, brown students, folks of color, they struggle when they get to a college campus and they barely see someone that looks like them,
right,
that can relate or understand that, okay, I have to make a decision to either go to class or work because I have to pay for school and my house by myself. Do you feel the media, journalism and media, they don't do a good job putting those stories out to where the struggle of, hey, we have to do multiple jobs just to make it, or not even just that, the resources, where can I find these resources, right? Do you think the narrative has been always pushed one way to where, and you brought it up, and I think part of the answer is yes, because you talk about the humanization, that's not happening. Why isn't those stories getting put out? Why do you think? Sorry, that was a long question.
No. It's a big topic. It's a big thing to understand. But I can only point to who people are prioritizing as their audience.
Yeah.
So who's your audience? Who's been your audience since whenever? What audience are you trying to attain? So I think that it really boils down to, who are you trying to inform? Who are you focusing on? What audience are you serving? And, this is Nevada. This is Las Vegas. And we know Las Vegas is a city that is prioritizing an international tourism draw, I guess I would say. And I don't know how that interacts with news. I know how it interacts with policies.
Yeah.
And how communities are structured, but I'm not really sure how that interacts with news.
Mm-hmm. I think mainly because people get their news from social media. Either if it's misinformation or what's current, they're probably not picking up the paper like they were 15 or 20 years ago.
Right.
But they're still reading. They're even if it's from the media news or writing, they're still getting it from social media, which picks the influence. And we see that, right, because we see the debates on folks. At this point, I don't even engage in debates anymore because it's like, all right, let's have this conversation in real life and see if you still feel like this is actually accurate. Right. And you're not, and Google search is not right in your right hand. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's why I was wondering what you thought about that and how journalism still does have an impact, even if it's through media, TV, or them reading it.
Yeah.
Because there's people who try to argue with me all day. And even right now, it's election season, so everything is hot right now with the election season. But after November, no one's going to pay attention to February 1st, 2025, when the Nevada legislative session's happening.
And only a small amount of people are going to be paying attention to that.
And that's my point. So,
and maybe that's where the news comes into play, because if, I know where the policies are prioritized, then our news is going to cover what the policies are, the policies that's being prioritized. So maybe that's a thing. But that's a good question.
That's what I think about, man. I think about those things. What about you, Cord?
So was journalism always something that you wanted to do? When you were younger, was this the thing that you're like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do? Or was it something else and then something happened along the way that led you to journalism?
It's been, my pursuit of journalism has been somewhat of an inward battle.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that. My dad has always called me a journalist, even when I was a little kid.
Oh, wow.
My mom was like, no, she a lawyer. And he was like, nah, she a journalist.
I love you can see both.
And maybe both. Maybe I could do both. Maybe I should go get that law degree. But it's been something that I had to battle with before I really just made that commitment to,
right.
This is what you're passionate about. You're damn near obsessed
Yeah.
with how people get information about their community, about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it was somewhat of a battle, and it still is.
So what's like if you don't mind me asking, like what is that battle? If it's something that you're passionate about and seems to be doing well, then what's the internal battle still?
For me, it's more of like the struggle. So it's like being a starving artist almost, right? You're on this grind, and that's because I'm in a city where there's not a big journalism industry.
Right.
There's still so much to uncover about Las Vegas, about the Black community, and then there's also the fact that a lot of people just don't care.
Very true.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, why am I beating a dead horse? Sometimes
Right.
I get to that space.
I feel that.
But over time, I've learned to shift my path,
Mm-hmm.
and journalism, reporting stories. I'm a storyteller, and that pathway is just going to keep getting more broad.
Got you.
I feel.
So for our students here at CSN or even UNLV who are journalists, who look like you, who are you, what piece of advice would you give to them in a city that's not really journalism focused?
I would say we need you.
That's love.
We need you. We need you to keep with that passion. Read a lot. Read as much as you can. Excuse me. Read as much as you can. Read on topics that you're interested in, so that when you do get to that space of reporting, you have a foundation of just who you are as a writer, because you're a writer, you're a storyteller, and just build that foundation and be yourself.
Okay. That's good. I like that.
I'm good.
You good?
Yeah, she answered my question.
She did.
Yeah, that was what I've been sitting here thinking the whole time. Like, don't forget the question. Don't forget the question.
My last question to you.
Can I ask y'all a question?
Oh yeah, matter of fact, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Ask us a question. What's up?
this is a
We
first.
asking
Well,
us good
actually, I
questions.
guess this is for you, because you said you get your news from the margin.
Yeah.
So where do you get your news from?
That's a good question. Just like social media, Instagram, Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have like sources that you go to specifically?
No, there's the main ones always come up, and then I just do my own research afterwards. So yeah, I was just not like, oh, I seen this on Instagram. Did you hear about it? No, I'm not about to go run and ask somebody, did they hear what I saw on Instagram, until I go do my research, because especially these days, people love to clickbait and take a clip of what someone said and spin it to something that it wasn't, So, yeah.
So how would you describe your relationship with news? Would you say that you have a relationship with news?
No, I don't really look at the news too much, but just because most of the time it's bad news. Like, that's what a lot of people feed off of, is like the negativity, the negative energy. And I'm real big on like positivity, good vibrations, and things like that. So just because of the way my relationship with news has been over time, I just don't really dive into it. News about stuff that I care about, like music, shoes, fashion. But as far as like world news and what's going on in the world, it's like, I don't really care.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's interesting. But I get your viewpoint because, for example, I think I went into a debate one time recently where I didn't even say vote for this person. I just said, yo, respect this woman.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't know if you saw that. Mm-mm. So I made a post a month ago. I think they seen it. I said, hey, you can have whatever political differences you have about Kamala Harris, but respect this woman. Respect this black woman. That was a problem for people when I said that. I didn't say vote for her.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to do what I do, but I said just respect her. And someone took, so you believe in someone who says they want to harm the kids? I was like, what are you talking about? They brought up a clip where she misspoke and said what she meant to say was protect the environment because she was talking about global warming. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I remember that speech because I actually watched the whole thing. I was like, did you watch the whole thing? Because if you watch it, you'll see she actually was saying to protect the children from global warming, like clean energy, clean environment. She was like, she was trying to say, I forgot what it was, but she was saying less toxic air in the air, whatever, to protect children. And she misquoted it somehow. And I was like, y'all taking this one clip and running with it.
Right.
And y'all not even watching the whole thing. I was like, did you watch the whole interview? I'll send you the whole interview. And they'll be like, no, I didn't watch this shit. I was like, watch the whole thing and understand the context. But I think that's my big push too. Part of the reason why people don't care is because they're not educated.
I think that people don't care because of the stories that's being told. Like
well,
you
that too.
said, everything's negative.
True. But like, do you think, but also think about how there's people now I know who care less about information to care for school. And now you're grown. Not saying that you don't change, people change. But now you're trying to be illiterate in reading and info. And it's like, bro, you didn't take it serious. Like, yo, like, do you even know where your source comes from at this point? I think that piece of the stories aren't terrible. Don't get it twisted. The stories out here are trash. I'm not gonna lie to you. Not all of them, but there's a lot of trash stories.
We got some good reporters.
We do got some good reporters for sure.
Reporters out here.
We definitely do.
And
and I'm not just talking about Vegas either. I'm talking about in general.
And they deal with an editor. Their editors are the ones who say yes or no to their story. So we definitely have some dope reporters, dope storytellers. But once again, like I said, the gap is in that humanizing black folks. Opinion. And that's as a overall local news industry.
Right. Definitely. So I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show. It's been phenomenal having you. I hope you had a good time.
I did.
Yeah, thanks for coming through.
Thanks for having me. This was great. It's not often that I'm the one being interviewed.
I know, right?
You interviewed us real quick. I was like, whoa.
Oh, I was ready.
Question for me?
I appreciate your honesty.
I asked the questions here, lady. No,
but I appreciate your honesty because that's real. Like, the news doesn't, it sounds like our local news isn't serving you. Mm-hmm. And news from the margin, get familiar with it. And I would like to hear your thoughts about it.
Tap in.
I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. See if it changes your perspective.
Okay.
One thing I would love to see more from a journalism and media standpoint, the businesses that are out here. Our good friend Devin Moore asked a good question at the last networking event. He said, how many black-owned restaurants do you know that's out here? And they were like, folks were like 50, 30, blah. Like, nope, higher. It's like 87. Between 87 and 90.
Wow.
I'm like, I knew there was about 50, 60, but where the rest of these
we don't know about the other one.
Where the other ones at? But just someone who... No,
that's a good point. And I like that angle, you know, because most people are doing the whole reels and going out and doing all that. And, while I'm at it, there's a difference between content creators and journalists.
Journalism.
Okay? And people try to lock me in that box to say I'm a content creator.
No, you're
I'm
not.
like, do you see how much content come out? I am not a content creator. I'm not dropping stuff every day.
Right.
But that's a very journalistic angle. How many businesses are out here. I like that.
That's what I think about. That's the stuff I want to see.
Okay.
Because I let me and my wife, we're Yelpers. We're elite Yelpers. So I like to write my reviews. But
nice.
and Hey, listen, hey, don't judge me. Hey,
His service was terrible.
No, not bad. But when you're an elite Yelper, you get invited to stuff before it opens.
Really?
Yeah, you get to go to stuff.
So you elite Yelper? That's like a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Like a membership.
Yeah.
Kinda?
Well, you apply for it, and it's based off how your reviews are, and the elite squad decides, all right, you're gonna be an elite. Wow. So then, when the Hunger Games opened, the exhibition, we got to go to it first before everyone opened it. The playground spot in Henderson that was bailed off Castle, I got to take the girls there. Listen, I'm a dad, so cost effective. You got to think of cost effective ways.
Right.
During the pandemic, we was doing all types of activities. That's, bro.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's a thing.
Wow.
But that stuff like that, you wouldn't know.
Not at all.
Why don't I know that? In general, I got tapped into it because of my wife. That's the only reason. But those are things that I think about locally. There's great things that happen here in Vegas and Nevada in general that's not reported. So I think you make a valid point. That's why I love News on the Margin. News from the Margin. That's why I love News from the Margin. So, but I want to tap into our last segment, which is the happy hour. Ow. Oh, what? You got a question? Cameraman?
Yeah, I got a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, cool.
I want to ask you, so in media, do you want to take it bigger than Vegas, or what do you see yourself in 5 years with the media?
In 5 years, I'm hoping to had produced either a short documentary or feature film documentary. So moving into the film space.
Okay.
And I just had my mind open when it comes to just filmmaking in general. So I don't know if national is the space where I think this film will be, trying to be. So I'm not sure.
I got one more question too.
Go ahead, man. Listen, you must have really sparked it for the cameraman to ask a question.
I've never heard of the media too, so I'm kind of shocked too, just like bro is. So I'm thinking so if no one ever seen your channel or something like that, what type of content news-wise, because how you said it's a lot of clickbait and everything. So what would we expect from your channel versus anyone else's channel? What makes it special?
What makes News from the Margin special?
Good question.
I guess I'm trying to think. Well, I'll say what people have told me why they like it. So one thing I hear a lot is I give people a voice. They feel like I give
that's true.
Our community voice, and that's what newspapers do. They're spokespeople for certain communities. So I'm glad that comes across and that's achieved. But I would say that News from the Margin is news that is political, from a Black perspective, and it is political news that wants to achieve sharing political news in a nonpartisan way, but that doesn't deny racism and doesn't politicize topics that shouldn't be politicized, honestly.
Right.
So yeah, that's what News from the Margin is. And it specifically assumes that the audience is Black or Latino. How do you say that word?
Diaspora.
How do you say it with the ick at the end? Diasporic? Diasporic?
Yeah, diasporic.
People. So, yeah.
What does that mean?
The diasporic, so it's like the spectrum. So people, oftentimes, and I'll say this, if you want to go historical context, when we think of what happened from 1619 to 1865, that slave trade time, they often, Americans, I would say, Black Americans, they only think they came here. No, they made a stop to Cuba. They made a stop to Puerto Rico, Haiti. And we forget the first rebellion was in Haiti.
Yep.
The first Black rebellion before, and I'm sad that I'm spacing bro's name.
Toussaint?
No. It was Nat Turner who had the rebellion here in the U.S.?
Nat Turner was here, yeah.
Yeah, so Nat Turner was here. I'm tripping. So before him, it was Haiti.
Right, Toussaint.
Right? Yeah. So Haiti had the first rebellion, but they didn't want, they think So now, current day, we want to police people police what's black or not,
right?
And that's part of that's where when she talk about the diaspora,
right?
She's talking about everybody.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I want to add a little bit more thought to that and say when we're talking about diasporic people,
Yeah.
I mess up that. I don't want to butcher that
diaspora.
word.
I got you.
But it really just means that Black, Latino,
Afro,
Asian. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the intricate details, but basically, it's this thought that these people have been displaced
Yes.
and they're a community together, but they're really broken apart.
Yes.
And they have similar experiences all over the world, some more tragic. And that's some of the I want to inform all of those folks and me and all of us and have a space where it's political news, doesn't deny racism,
Yes.
doesn't polarize or politicize issues that have been said to be human rights.
Yeah.
Like, why are we politicizing, polarizing these issues and just presenting it in a way that doesn't deny racism? It's not colorblind news, it's race-informed news. And that's what people would get if they, and they would get news about what's happening, not just in Palestine, but what's happening in Sudan, what's happening in the
Yes.
Congo. How are these countries still being pillaged by, systems of power? So, yeah.
Powerful.
Last question. This ain't like you, but last question. Was that the reason why it inspired you to get into media?
Was what the reason?
Just like some of the views, like I guess the talks from the perspective of the blacks or the females' perspective. Was that the reason why you jumped into media? Kind of like, hey, I'm just trying to sound like.
I think she answered part of that earlier.
Is it a reason why I got into media? But right, you're saying media. You're not saying like news. You're saying like what media space? Just media making.
The start, the root, the seed. What cranked that up? To even have a channel in the first place.
Right. I think it was once again me being adaptable. So I had the newsletter series.
Yeah.
And it's accessible. Like Instagram is accessible. That's what I launched News from the Margin on. It's accessible. There's audiences on there. And I didn't need to go ask to be distributed by anyone.
Yeah,
it was just right there.
Yeah.
So I think it was more about being accessible. It was accessible to me.
Beautiful. No, thank you. And this is a good conversation to have because another piece, when you talk about the diaspora, and I love it because you do hit not just on Palestine or what's happening in Israel, you hit on everywhere. One aspect that I don't see people talk about often, but it's really an issue is the colorism. Colorism is a real thing.
Internationally?
Internationally, big time.
For sure.
Big time.
Absolutely.
And that plays into journalism and media too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Images we see, all that.
And a lot of times I like to call that anti-blackness.
It is.
Because that penetrates. It's such a powerful tool of oppression that it affects people who ain't even black.
Yes.
So, yeah, I like to kind of think of it in that way.
Man, thank you so much, Naoka. Man, I hate that this is the end of the show. This was a great episode. I appreciate it. I knew we were going to have a deep intellect conversation. I can't ready with these questions. So, and I appreciate the cameraman. He has some questions for you. So this segment is our happy hour. And in the happy hour, we give a toast to something that's going great in our lives, small or big. And this is ginger ale. Just for the people who know, this is ginger ale. You don't have to worry about ginger ale. So we always, and since now it's a lady in the room, we're going to start with you first, man. We're gentlemen. Mm-hmm. So what is something going on great for you right now that you could share?
Something that's going on great is, like I said, my mind is being expanded when it comes to approaching storytelling and being informative. So anytime my mind is just like blown and it's like, wow, that's another way to think and see things or approach things. That's really exciting for me. That's a new word that I learned called a glimmer.
A glimmer, yeah.
Right, you saw that. It was like a meme.
I seen that.
Right, so social media, I mean, it serves its purpose,
Yeah.
And they said that a glimmer is one of those moments that you have that brings you joy or something like that. And And that's very much something that is a glimmer for me.
Super dope. Cordon?
Just life, good health. Family's in good health. About to go have a good time at this football game. So yeah, everything's pretty smooth right now. How about you?
Good for me, man. I'm wrapping up some stuff. Proposal, dissertation. So I will no longer be coming up soon. Shortly, I will no longer be a PhD student. I will be a PhD candidate.
Right on.
Lord, and then the IRB process starts. Trying to get my studies approved. Yeah, man.
Nice.
So what I'm writing my dissertation's on the impact of critical mentorship programs on Black youth.
Well, you know a lot about that.
I do.
Sure.
I do.
Yes, and I'm gonna want that interview.
Oh, I got you for sure. I'm
Yeah.
gonna talk all about it.
Does it have a local focus? Like, is
yeah, it is.
Ooh, yes.
It's big because reason being, the history behind youth groups, the divine non-youth groups, especially in Vegas, that story hasn't been told on an academic level. But I come from that. My business partner, Nick, comes from that. Cordon comes from that. Because the same youth group that mentored me, I came an advisor, I mentored him through. So, like, I've known him since he was in 7th grade. And he's
dope.
Yeah, and he was in King of Jewels, too. So,
I love that.
you see, like, where mentoring has gone. But I'm talking about particularly why for Black youth, why it's important, and why, as mentors, we have to make sure we're not coming with a biased lens, because oftentimes in mentoring, I'm sorry, this what doctorate students do. We go on our soapbox about it. Historically, mentorship programs focus on two ways. They always focused on the deficit, as if, there's a need for folks of color or people. There's something that's needed. And there's always been this concept of the majority that is the all right concept of how people should move in life, even though it doesn't apply to everybody.
Right.
And that's what I'm talking about in my dissertation, of like, this is why certain programs have been effective when you do it this way, when it's holistic, when you have kids a part of the foundation and structure process. So, and it's the first time I'm actually talking about it on this platform, what my dissertation's about. So
That's what's up. And you said you got to go through IRB. I know that's the whole process to start doing surveys.
Yep. So my research. Yep.
So that's exciting.
So I can't wait to talk about what local folk, young Black youth say here, how it's impacted them.
Yes.
So I can't wait to share that data.
That's fire. Are you going to interview them on camera?
Yeah, after. I can't do it during and it's crazy, the way I'm actually collecting my data, my interviews, they're going to be podcast style. So now there's people who are doing podcasting as their way of interviewing.
I love that.
So,
see how media just...
Yeah, and you can do that. But like, I have to still change their names. I can't do anything. Like, while I put the publishing, I can't have their name or video part. Gotcha. But the folks I've spoke to already, they do want to be recorded. Okay. So after that's published, then we're going to come back around and talk about it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's
via
dope.
camera.
That's dope.
Yeah, man.
Can't wait to see the outcomes and what you find.
Thank you. Which is part of why I was doing the other stuff early on in my dissertation, my doctorate program, because I was getting ready for it and I didn't know. At the time I didn't know, but now I was like, it was preparing me for this.
Perfect.
So yeah, man. That's everything going on with me, y'all. And I just want to toast to everything we got going. Toast to y'all. Many blessings. Yes. We need that raspberry one when it comes out.
Yeah, we got to get the raspberry one next time.
Yes.
Sarah, we need the raspberry.
Yes. We need a raspberry, Sarah. Boom. Sarah, we need the raspberry ginger ale.
Raspberry ginger ale.
We got you. Naoka, right here. This camera is for you.
Okay.
Tell people where they can find you, all your social handles, websites, everything. Right there. That's your camera.
So you can find me on Instagram mainly at News from the Margin, keeping you informed for real, but it's just at News from the Margin. Sure. Keeping you informed for real is my little tagline. I'm also on Facebook, and I do have my website, but it's not out there and up and rolling. And I don't know what I'm going to put on my website because the newsroom is on Instagram. So follow me on Instagram. That will mean a lot. Engage, share the stories, read them, listen to the podcast, give me feedback. Most of the people who are, I guess, subscribers, I would say, they are very interactive. So don't be afraid to interact with me.
Don't be afraid. Yes. Thank you, Naoka. It's great having you on the show. I deeply appreciate you, Cordon. As you already know, brother, it's always a pleasure.
Always.
When we have powerful folks to do powerful things on this podcast.
It's a powerful podcast.
Hey, man, come on. We do what we can.
It's keeping it cozy.
Appreciate it. That's why we bring dope people to let the people know what's good. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Business Information Buffet Podcast, also known as the BIB Podcast, where everybody eats. We are your hosts, Sean Torrey and Cordon Allen, and we are out. Be safe, be blessed. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.